up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Raphael. Papa, with you, bro?
What up, bro? Early morning stream. Got to get it going before we get on this flight out to Orlando, going to join the Pels out there in Orlando as they take on the Magic this weekend. So I'm excited about that, man. I'm excited to get out there. Orlando's one of my favorite cities, and so I'm excited to get up out of there. But yeah, man, I'm all good. I'm all good. Enjoying this summer weather in November. I know out there in Texas it's a little different. They tell us that y'all gonna be getting something that's called snow. I don't really know what that is. But out here it's like 85, 86 degrees. So just Louisiana doing Louisiana weather things, man. But how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed, for sure. I wish there was more wins to talk about for the Pelicans, but such is life in the NBA. And we'll jump into that. But before we do, make sure you guys follow us on X, on Twitter, on IG, on TikTok. That's _basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So before we get to the East Coast trip in Florida, where the Pels try to get back on the riding ship, we got to talk about the homestand. So the Pels go 1-3 at home. Zion plays for one of the games, or a couple of the games, and other than that, the Pels battled in this one, and we'll talk through that. We won't spend too much time on the Hawks and Blazers game because I felt like it was a tethered version of one another. Basically the same game, you just played versus different teams. But before we jump into that, make sure you keep an eye on the Milwaukee Bucks. If you're not aware, they're not looking so hot. And again, it's early in the season. There's still 70 plus more games to go. But the Pelicans own their pick from the Drew Holiday trade, and they're 1-6 right now. And other than Chris Middleton, they have pretty much their entire roster. So just pay a little bit more attention to that, but as the season goes on. But let's jump into these games for the Pels. So the Hawks game, Blazers game, of course, Dyson Daniels becomes healthy again in time to play versus his team, versus the Pelicans. He shows out. He has a good game. Trae Young gets it going in the second half of the game. Pelicans battle. They're in the game the entire time, even without Zion and without – we're not even going to list all the names – without the majority of their rotation. But they're in it, right? And then at the end, the Hawks pull away. Well, then you fast forward to the Blazers game. The same thing happens. The Pelicans are battling in it. Brandon Boston, we'll get to him. He shows out, and then they play well, even without Zion. And then at the end, in the fourth quarter, they run out of gas because they just don't have bodies. They don't not even just your main players. You just don't have bodies at this point that are playable consistently. And again, they fizzle out in that one, 118-100. But what did you see from those two games that, even though the Pels lost, there were some things to take away?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also, Larry Nance coming in there and detonating at the rim, giving everybody, showing everybody, the small ball five can still do a little something. But it was good to see Dyson and Larry in the Smoothie King Center, that night. And I think, the team, again, it is a carbon copy story over and over again. It's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing a team come out that is full of guys who are trying to make the league and get a standard contract or get a long contract. So they come out with their hair on fire and they compete and they play hard. But then, the full quarter is winning time, right? That's when the stars become stars. That's when your starters show why they're starters. And the Pelicans just run out of gas in that time, right? They just don't have the capable bodies to close these NBA games. Even though they like I've tweeted, feels like 3 games in a row, they have the will. It's just not, they just don't have the bodies. And so, that Blazers and Hawks game, like you said, it came down to basically the same thing. And, I just want to right now, before we get too deep into it, give a huge shout out in a I guess like a hat tip to Brandon Ingram, who has been the stalwart of this team night in and night out, nose to the grind, just going out there and performing, not complaining about who's around you and who's playing. And you saw him kind of go do that in that Hawks and in that Blazers game, just kind of do what he could. But in the end, again, when a team has their starting five and bench players versus a team that has a bunch of guys who weren't on the team during training camp. You got a starter that just got there like a couple of days ago, who's being relied on to generate offense in Brandon Boston. This is what the team looks like until you get back. So till you get guys back, and so you have good things that you see on the floor, right? You see a little bit of hustle. You see some commitment to the team rebounding. You see the Pels fight and be scrappy. This is what this team is right now, scrappy. Even though the results don't show, and obviously the defensive numbers and things don't show, you see them being scrappy. They just don't have the talent right now, and I think honestly that's the most frustrating part about it, because as we'll see in the Cavs game, like you see some things pulling together for the team. If they just had the healthy bodies, could they do some things? And so, the Hawks and the Blazers came down and got 2 wins, and the Pelicans, they're watching their games kind of slip away from them. But again, there's still a lot of time left in the season, and hopefully some guys will be coming back soon.
Yeah. What I took the most of is like Brandon Boston's a player, man. Like yes, the Pelicans lost, and yes, you probably don't rely upon someone who was just on a 2-way in San Antonio, and then congratulations, you get to start for the Pelicans and play 38 minutes. But you've always seen his name. He was one of the highly recruited players coming out of school. Baby BI was his kind of name and who he was linked to, and you're seeing it, and the moment's not too big for him. Like, you're being asked from being into the bench guy to be a starter guy next to Zion, next to BI, and you're being asked to carry the load when one is not available. And for a guy like that, who you can tell the team, like each one of them has come out and said, oh, I knew Brandon before this. I knew him before that. He's always been a hooper and things like that. You're seeing it manifest on the court. And Zion even said after the game, versus the Cavs, this is a guy we hope stays around and stays around with us, right? Because of how he can play and manipulate his game off everybody else. To your point about who's available, I think the biggest thing from this team, I know the offense is glaring, especially when Zion's not on the court, but it's the defensive side of the ball. What have we said for the past 3 years? The Pelicans are a defensive team. Well, right now they're ranked 30th. They were 7th last year. 30th in defense. They're 29th in opponents' points in the paint, 29th in opponents' fast break points. Like, these are areas where the Pelicans have been historically good in the Willie Green tenure. Well, you take out an all-defensive player, Herb Jones. You take another one out in DeJounte Murray. You take away a 6'10 guy and Trey Murphy. That's going to lead to not great defense, right? That's going to lead to having a team that's undersized pretty much at every position, outside of Eevees at the center position as well. You're undersized everywhere. So you're going to lose on the boards. You're going to lose in the height possessions and things like that. And you're seeing that translate to the offensive end. Just like we talked about before, this team is athletic. They need to turn defense into offense. Well, if you're not playing defense, offense becomes a whole lot more difficult. And then if you combine the two, that's why you're 3-6. And so, again, I don't necessarily look at the record. And again, I know it's early in the season and everybody's dealing with something. But I don't necessarily look at I'm looking at the trends and how the team is growing from there. So you talked about the Cavs game, and let's get into that. Zion returns. He's had the left thigh contusion, the contusion word again. We're not going to get into that. Has the thigh contusion. He comes back, and it's good to see him come back because the Pelicans desperately need it over these next couple games. The tone comes out. Cavs are undefeated. They're hot. They're looking at the Pels as lunch meat. Like, hey, let's go take care of this real quick. Very quickly, the score is 0-8. Very off the jump, the Pelicans are struggling. You're like, oh no, here we go again. But then I saw something, and this is something that you and I have talked about no matter who's on the court. Your stars need to be stars because people will follow. I saw Zion turn up the energy a little bit in that OA. Like, he was like, we're not about to go out like this again. You saw him diving on the floor. You saw him going after rebounds. You saw him playing with force. And immediately the Pelicans get back in the game, right? Immediately everybody else starts playing with more force. Everybody else starts forcing the issue defensively. And immediately the Pelicans make it a game. They get some momentum. And all of a sudden you're in a really tight, conclusive game the rest of the game. So from that standpoint, what did you see from Zion just to start this? Obviously, you have the injury scare. Everyone's like, here you go again. But he comes back out in the second half. But what did you see from him in particular in this Cavs game, even in a loss that you want to see him build from?
Yeah, I tweeted, yesterday at the game. I said this is the most locked in I've saw Zion since the Lakers game back last season where he got hurt. He just looked like a guy that was fed up with like everything, fed up with his body, doing whatever he's doing, fed up with the narratives, fed up with losing, fed up with injuries. He just looked angry, and that's the Zion that you want to see more often, right? When Willie Green took him out in the fourth quarter, and the Cavs went on kind of a run late in the fourth quarter, you could see him visibly on the bench, throwing his hands up, swinging at the air, just upset and mad. And then I think it was Bi and Jose came down and hit a shot, and then Jose hit a three, and kind of brought the team back from that run, kind of stymied that run and brought the team back. I think Zion went out, they were up by like 2 or 3. The Cavs went on a run. I think they were down, the Pels were down by like 5 or 7. Then they hit these 2 shots, and then the Pels are down by like 2 or 3. And Zion is the first person up, yelling, screaming, let out the yell. And it was good to see him kind of unlocking that beast that we see. And you saw it, like he was just going to the rim, putting his head down. There was a couple times Bi and Jordan Hawkins were like standing on the 3-point line, like, he's going for it. Like they weren't even looking for the ball coming out of the play. He just put his head down, and you saw his low center of gravity give Jared Allen and Evan Mobley problems, right? Like they just could not guard him because he's so low to the ground and coming and turning that corner with so much force. And he was finishing at the rim over and over again. And for the stories and the narrative that comes out about Zion, and obviously his injuries are what they are, right? His body is what it is. And I tweeted yesterday about the NBA really hasn't seen a body and play combination, play style combination, the likes of Zion. And you're kind of seeing why, right? It's a lot of force, a lot of weight on those legs and things. But I mean, it was very good to see him come back in that second half, because you kind of heard people around. I was sitting in the stands, and you heard people talking about, is he going to come back for the second half? And people on the other side were like, hey, no, indeed, no, he ain't coming back. He's not coming back. And then to see him come out in this and during halftime and warm up, and then give that performance in the second half, diving on the floor for loose balls, going for blocks, fighting for rebounds in the trees with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Just playing with the force of the superstar that you've seen from Zion, what makes it so frustrating that you don't have the rest of the team, because this guy can drive winning with capable bodies around him. But then at the end, once again, Zion comes back into the game, and they just don't have, the Cavs just have an answer on the perimeter that the Pels just don't have right now. They have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, superstar, all-star caliber players at the guard position. And the Pelicans are trying their best with Jose. Shout out to Jose with a great game, and Brandon Boston. But they're just not Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And so, when it's time to close, Donovan Mitchell made the shots that he was supposed to make. But I did think that Zion played a really good game, all things considered. And I think he really showed some guts and toughness coming back in that second half, and not just being a decoy out there, like going full force and going for it. And I think this is what should be a good sign to come, because the Cavs were literally one of the best defensive teams in the NBA And the Pels just had it going offensively. They scored 122 points without all of those guys that you mentioned, and CJ McCollum. So they were offensively playing well. The defense again just not able to go. And in the fourth quarter, Donovan Mitchell just went up to another gear that the Pels backcourt just could not get to.
Right. And the Cavs really won the game in the third quarter. They came out and dominated, tied at halftime. They get out to a 16-point lead, and then you're playing catch up when you're undermanned. And that's a tough thing to do versus a team that hasn't lost so far this season. But to your point, and to one of your favorite Kevin Garnett quotes from the movie Uncut Gems, don't show me something I can't have. The way Zion was attacking the boards and the way he was making Jared Allen and Evan Mobley feel small, that's a crazy thing to say from a 6'6" player to 2 7-footers. Jared Allen had, 5 fouls. Evan Mobley fouled out the game. Like, that's a sign of what Zion can do for a team once you are healthy. It's not just his ability to score, because everyone's going to say, well, you're trading 2s for 3s. It's his ability to foul out the other team. And if you're able to do that, and you're able to dive on the ball on the ground for loose balls, and you're able to be vicious on the boards, you need to do that every game, especially when you're down so many pieces, especially when you're on a 3-game losing streak. You've got to set the tone. Last season, CJ McCollum and B.I. and Zion kind of talked about, like, we're feeling each other out, got to see who's going to set the tone offensively and who's going to start out the games quick. Well, guess what? It needs to be Zion every time. He needs to come out and set the tone in the first quarter. The Pelicans keep getting off to these slow starts with or without Zion on the court. He needs to be the tone setter. I've seen enough evidence in the games to say when Zion brings it, everybody brings it, and everybody's energy turns up. And so not only that, to your point, we'll get into B.I. I've loved the games that B.I.'s have played so far this year. It hasn't always led to wins. It hasn't always led to great shooting nights, but he's taking what the defense is giving. He's not forcing things and over dribbling just to over dribble. It's normally he's being put in a bad situation, so he has to do those things. But other than that, he's catching and shooting. He's letting it fly. In the second quarter, when Zion went down, he took the reins and he was ISOing Evan Mobley and taking advantage of his slower feet as a 7-footer. And then when he had a small on him, he was putting him in the post and getting into the rack. Like, those are the type of things you want to see, B.I. Just look at an advantage and say, how should I play it, right? And what should I do in this situation? And so to see your 2 stars, again, like we talked about on the last part, starting to figure it out. And to your point, Jose has a great game and he shoots well, and it's just not enough. Brandon Boston plays well. It's just not enough. But these are good trends. These are good things that you want to see so that when your main rotation players are back, they're just filling into what you've already established and what you've already built upon.
Yeah, and to the point of showing me something and I can't have it. One thing I saw from Brandon Ingram last night that was, the guy next to me, he said the same thing when I said it out loud. I saw B.I. kind of foul baiting a little bit. He got Sam Merrill once, kind of the swing through and got a foul. And, we've all over the years, if you've been following the Pelicans, you know about the comments that Brandon Ingram and Zion make about playing the game the right way and not flopping and doing things like that. But again, that is part of the game. And if that's something that Brandon Ingram can get into more often, right, in games where he can draw a foul or 2 here or there, especially if Zion is getting people into the penalty, if Zion is getting the Pelicans into the bonus and fouling people out, that's an easy 2 points at the line for Brandon Ingram a couple of times, where if you're getting that foul because you're so tall and people are guarding you as a number 1 option, right? And so they have their hands out, they're trying to contest, your fadeaway, your turn over the shoulder shots. Go ahead and get some of those fouls. Bring that ball into their hands so that you can, get to the line and get a couple easy buckets, easy points that way. But yeah, to your point, I mean, listen, Jose has an out of body experience. I posted a picture Before the game started, he was, playing with his daughters before the game, just looked real laxed and, had his daughters there, was all into it, all into being a girl dad, and then goes out and has the game that he has. That just the confidence that Brandon Ingram and Zion playing in games and playing well in games, what that does to the rest of the team, it showed. And to your point, listen, Brandon Boston is a guy that the Pelicans are going to have to look when everybody's back. Again, these uncomfortable questions get even more uncomfortable because you just can't shelf him completely. You just can't. And so, he has shown, even in losses, games where how many times last season we were like, there's just a lot of people, a lot of guys on the second line that just can't generate a shot, right? Everybody's a reactive player. You have to set them up. You have to give them an opportunity, catch and shoot, put them in positions. Brandon Boston is like, well, to hell with all that. I can get in the ISO bag with 6 or 7 seconds left and get this shot off. And so he's just a breath of fresh air this season to have a guy deep on the bench who has been called upon to do things that he's not used to or that he wasn't brought in to do, and able to put the ball on the floor and generate his own offense and be a proactive player next to Brandon Ingram and Zion. So I think what you're learning from this stint is that you have a couple of guys who should be able to step in when you get your guys back and play in minutes and be productive in those minutes. And one other thing about the game, man, I'm sure we can transition into it. I liked some things from Eeves, but Eeves definitely got his welcome to the NBA moment. Them two guys are 7 feet tall, and I understand you're hella athletic, but so are they as well. And listen, this is it's not just that he's a rookie. He's a rookie. He's raw to the game of basketball, and so he's learning a whole bunch of things. But it kind of works to his advantage because he's too young to know better, right? And so he's out there, man. They gave the ball to Eevees on the block, where Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and all of that. And I mean, Eeves went to him. He got him once, but Eeves came back and put a post move on him and an up and under. And I'm like, okay, Eeves, I didn't know this where we were at this point in time, man. And that's where we are, right? Going to Eeves on the block against Eevees is a positive play, apparently. I'm going to the block against Evan Mobley is a positive play, apparently. So I really like what I saw from Eeves. I think Eeves is just a guy you're just gonna have to play him. He didn't get a lot of minutes last night. I don't know what that was about. I would have been playing him way more often. And we'll get into Willie Green because there's some good things that I saw, but some things yesterday that was rotation wise that I got some questions about. But I just think that the Pelicans are going to be in this trading pattern where you have to hold water. You're 3 and 6. You just got to tread water until these guys get back, hopefully coming soon, and stay in the mix. Again, you still got 70 plus games to go. And so you have a lot of games to play. But you do see some positive things out of this skeleton crew cast of the Pelicans.
Right. I tweeted, East was the best big on the court in the first quarter. Like he plays fearless, and that's something you need from a young player, but he also plays under control. So like Jackson Hayes played fearless, but never was in control and never was predictable in what he was going to give you. Eeves tries not to do too much. Sometimes, like, I want him to be more aggressive when he's got a mismatch underneath the goal. But to your point, when you're going against two of the better defender centers in the league, and you are giving them all that they're giving back to you, in the same, like, I was questioning the same thing. I know that he only played like 20 minutes per game in college. That probably had to do with him being raw and Baylor trying to understand him. And I think that the Pelicans are trying not to do too much early on. But to your point, like when East was in the game, you felt as if there was a sense of defense. And when he was out the game, it was like, well, the Pels are severely undersized.
That's the thing, Raph. You're playing Evan Mo. I get small ball against a team that might have a center out there. You're playing against against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. JRE is not going to be able to do anything out there with them. And Daniel Tice seems like he's hurt. Carlo has been banished to the shadow realm. Trey Jemison is also banished to the shadow realm. So you're stuck. You're just left with Eeves. And when you're playing 2 7-footers, you have to at least give yourself a shot by playing one of them if you're not going to play anybody else. So it just, you had to have Eeves out there. He's only going to get better by playing. We always say you only get better by playing basketball. He's only going to get better by playing, keeping him reserved on the. Listen, you are down to the bare studs on the roster. You don't have the luxury of, we're just not gonna play. We're gonna take it slow, bro. There is nobody else to play. You have to get out there and play him. And I just don't understand how JRE got so many minutes over Eeves. And just my pet peeve. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm sorry. I ain't even get a soapbox.
I think the key sub that you're talking about, and Zion even said at the game, he's like, eventually Eeves is going to get to 30 and 35 minutes as the season goes on. But I think the key substitution you're talking about is late in the game, the Pelicans are making their run, and Eeves Misi is subbed out for Javonte Green to run the 5 out. After the game, Willie Green is asked, like, what was the thought behind that? They were trailing. They were trying to get more threes up and have more space on the floor since Eeves wasn't giving them a whole lot offensively after the first quarter. And I get the idea. The problem is, as well as Javonte Green played yesterday and as well as Javonte Green has played this entire season for this team, he is not Trey Murphy. So when you want to close games with the and again, we've talked about this all year long, the overblown of the Pelicans not having a center all season long, because Trey was going to finish the games most likely at the 5 anyway. But Trey Murphy is not available. Trey Murphy is 6'10". Javonte Green is not 6'10" and is not the floor spacer that Trey Murphy is. And so just to say that you want to play small ball 5, you want to spread the floor, even though that's not really the player that you're putting in, because you want to prepare for that for when Trey is healthy, you got to be able to kind of be flexible in the moment based off the matchup, based off the players that you have available altogether, right? And so that leads us into the conversation. What's been your assessment of Willie Green so far this season?
So it's difficult. It's difficult for obvious reasons. And I was talking to AD about this actually, about what coaches go through when you have situations like this. And because I'm at the game, and so he was talking on his show about on his radio show about the Pelicans missing 100 points in players in that Blazers game on Monday. And it's crazy to think that like you could be missing all of those players. Like let's say like if you were a dentist, right? And you go to work one day and they're like, so you're a dentist, but you can't use your drill, you can't use your fluoride, you can't use the utensil to pick the teeth, you can't use the x-ray, and you can't use the floss, and you can't use like a mask or gloves. But I need you to save this person's mouth. It would be very difficult to do that. And if you don't do it, you're fired. So and this is what AD and I were talking about, is that like even the best coaches in the league, like Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, he even mentioned Red Auerbach. Rest in peace, Red Auerbach. None of these coaches would be able to win with a roster like this. And so it's almost like you evaluate Willie Green on a preseason scale, because like you said, you're looking for trends. You're looking for things that you can pull out of games that say, okay, this is good and this is bad. I can't really blame you for the results, because you're out there with Jamel Kane and playing hard minutes with him. So there are things that I've really liked about Willie Green's new season of Willie Green. He's challenging guy. He's challenging plays, going to bat for his guys. He got a technical foul this year. And on the court, there are some machinations that he's finding. He's giving, more reign to younger players obviously out of necessity, but still he's giving reins to guys. Jordan Hawkins seems more empowered this season. They are, they're still not shooting as many threes as you want. And again, a lot of that is who's available, but Brandon Ingram is shooting a lot of threes. You've already seen Zion take threes. You're seeing Jose take more threes. So like they are trying with what they have. They just don't have a lot. And also for the defense being, as bad as it is, 31, there are pockets of time where the Pelicans look like they're rotating hard and playing hard and things. So I think Willie's message is getting there. And I think there is some growth in Willie Green. There's still some things like we talked about, the rotations and machinations of guys that I think could work a little better. Again, I'm not an NBA coach. I coach my men's league. I do have a championship trophy back there, but I'm not an NBA coach. There are certain times that I still want to, like, what's going on with Carlo, Trey Jemison, guys that no, they aren't world beaters, but you should be able to throw something else in there just to kind of give something a feel, give Eevees and Daniel Tice a breather just to see if Carlo can hit a three. I watched Carlo go 4 for 5 and warming up on the 3-point line and corner threes. I watched him hit 4 out of 5 threes just kind of casually. And I'm like, so there's nothing that he can do, not 5 minutes, things like that. I do wonder, why aren't they going to more of a zone look? Like you saw it a little bit last year whenever you have these guys out there that not the greatest defenders and are trying, but are playing hard, but again, weren't NBA players a couple of weeks ago. Put them in the zone, give them the zone look like you saw last season. He would throw that in every once in a while, and just be able to be flexible out there. And so I just think there are obviously some things that he need to work on. And again, the players not being there, that is a very difficult thing to overcome night in and night out, especially that you're already probably going to lose on the rebounding numbers going into the game. This you're probably going to lose at the rebounding numbers, and more than likely you're going to lose the 3-point line. So going into that, your best bet is sheer star power of Zion and Brandon Ingram, and maybe some shooting from Jordan Hawkins. And then Zion doesn't play, and then Jordan Hawkins is not out there. So it's just, Jose is questionable. It's just a lot for Willie Green to have to deal with. But again, this is a results league. Unfortunately, that's just the way some things are. But I do think Willie Green has made some improvements that you can see on the floor. He still has a while to go before he's the finished product that everybody wants to see. But again, it's not really fair to judge him on results when you're missing, like AD said, 100 points in games where you're just starting behind the 8 ball already, and you're missing so many guys. It's just impossible to give him a sweeping judgment with so many guys out.
Yeah, I have I won't say criticism, because I do think that there's areas of growth, and to your point that if there's ever a time to try something, now is the time, because you have no other option. But in terms of criticism, I'm not criticizing, man, that 6 of the 10 players in his rotation have missed games already this year. That's impossible for a coach to overcome. Coaching be damned. If you tell them that your best player is going to miss half the game so far, and then your 3 through 8 are not going to be this is the NBA. Everybody's super talented. There's no way you're going to be able to overcome that over and over. So people saying fire Willie Green, you need someone new. Give the man a chance to actually use the starting lineup that they practice all training camp with before you make any sweeping adjustments. So I don't have too much to add on that. I think that I see a lot of growth signs of Willie Green, and I'm going to reserve judgment until I see it with the people that should be on the court. Now, you brought up a good point earlier about Brandon Ingram and what he's done so far this season. Let me ask you this question, because specifically you said that there was nothing that Brandon Ingram could do to go earn a max contract. Well, so far this season, he's averaging 24 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds on 49, 36, and 88 shooting splits. He's shooting 7 threes a game, which is a career high. He's a top 20 scorer in front of Donovan Mitchell, in front of LeBron James, and he hasn't had no help. Zion's been available for half the games, but not all the games. Is your tune changing a little bit? Is there a way Brandon Ingram can work himself to a max contract player, whether it's with the Pelicans or someone else?
So I did say that I own that. I said that there was nothing that he could do on this team to garner himself a max contract, meaning that $50 million. When I said that, I also did not expect the entire roster to be unavailable for multiple games. And
games.
Yeah, right. Multiple weeks. I am never the one who will be like, I'm standing on what I said. Damn if it's right, damn if it's not. What Brandon Ingram has showed me this season, and his commitment to doing everything that the Pelicans have asked, his ability to affect the game in so many different ways, and the professionalism that he showed after a tumultuous summer, I think he is earning his max contract. I think I did not foresee this happening, and I'm willing to change my tune on this as I receive new information. When I said that, it was because there were so many available players that I thought Brandon Ingram would not be able to get to 25 points a game and six rebounds and 5. Like, I didn't think he would be able to get there because of Zion, because of Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray. We knew that Jordan Hawkins was going to have a bigger role in his game. So I figured the Pelicans would have so many mouths to feed, basically, that he would not get the opportunity in a contract year where you have to sign next year or this summer to a team, that this would not be the season he could flex that max contract player type thing, because the Pelicans would be good because they have so many guys. And I thought maybe at the most, like Zion would be out, but like you have the rest of the people, or maybe like CJ misses a game, or maybe DeJounte misses a game, but you'd have everybody else. There is no star, nobody. Brandon Ingram has gone out there some games. The Blazers game without Jordan Hawkins on Zion,
that lineup was whoo.
He was, I know BI was like, bro, what? I don't even know half of these people, let alone trying to get me to win with them. And so this is like the unforeseen circumstance that I did not account for, that Brandon Ingram could go out and demonstrate just how talented of a player he is, just how professional. I marvel at his professionalism, because I understand just how tenuous and strenuous that situation was, and to ask a still fairly young guy to come out and no, we haven't paid you. You know, he's obviously talking about the value of himself and how the Pelicans or whoever aren't seeing that same value, and to come into the season and not be petty, not pout, especially looking to your left and your right, and the guy who just got paid, and the new trade acquisition that everybody was happy about, and all of those guys are out, and yet here I am once again saving the Pelicans, putting the Pelicans on his back over and over again, night in and night out, not complaining, not pointing fingers, not downplaying the guys that are out there, not downplaying the lack of, not talking about the lack of availability from other guys, just going out and being a ball and competing and being effective at it, right? I think he is showing that, in this new cap situation with the cap going up, that he is a guy that's worth paying the money to. So, it is. Again, Saints Pale Lady, welcome back. Good to see you. That's not my job. I think David Griffin has talked about Ms. Gale giving him the green light to go into the tax if need be. And I don't. That's not my job. I think you should go into the tax and pay to have a winning formula. I mean, pay to have a winning team. I understand all of that. I get that, but this guy has come out and shown you. Where are you going to get another guy like Brandon Ingram? And whatever the plan is, please explain it to me how it happens. But this guy has come out and has balled out and has been professional and has been effective and has started to shoot the three ball at a clip that he has never shot in his tenure. In his career. And that's without anybody playing. No gravity on the floor other than Zion and Zion some games and Hawk some games. B.I. has played every game. He has been out there. He's been available. He's been healthy. He's been effective. And this is the unforeseen circumstances. So I take this one on the chin because I did not foresee, which I probably should have, because it is New Orleans. The entire team be injured. But kudos to Brandon Ingram. I can't speak about his professionalism and his ability enough. He has been the bedrock, the linchpin, the only kind of regular that Willie Green can count on. And I think he is proving himself worthy of that money.
Yeah, and to your point, yes, the 3-point shot, that's what everyone's been talking about. And his rebuttal to that at the end of the last season was like, we needed a point guard. They had a point guard for one game, and then he broke his hand, right, from that standpoint. But he's still getting up the threes, right? Not just that, he's been better on the defensive end, too. He's almost averaging a block and a steal per game, and he's leading the way on that end. And to your point, he has been available. And so, yes, you're looking at the apron. The Pelicans are not in the same cap situation as other teams. Like, we did a podcast this offseason. There are multiple teams with $50 million plus, multiple of them on their roster right now. The Pelicans are not one of them. Even Zion's not making $50 million yet. So they can afford to bring up Brandon Ingram. Now, I think in terms of the tax and in terms of like Miss Gale willingness to do that, I disagree with you. I think that you should show me that you deserve to go into the tax before I go into the tax. Now, where my caveat comes is, I don't think Brandon Ingram should be the sacrificial lamb, because
I see
a comment in the chat that's like they didn't trade Brandon Ingram before the season, so the season's punted. Let me ask you this question: the Pelicans are 3-6. How many wins would they have if Brandon Ingram wasn't on this roster? The answer is 0. 0 is the answer. Listen, love Trey Murphy. I'm excited for what his potential can be. There is no one else garnering the attention that Brandon Ingram garners outside Zion Williamson on this roster. And this is where I've always stood. If you're going to trade a player like that, you better get a hell of a lot back, because you just don't have another player that can do what he does. Even when DeJounte Murray comes back, he's not Brandon Ingram either. Like Willie Green has said, Zion and B.I. are our best players. And this is someone who's known DeJounte since he was a kid and wanted to bring DeJounte in all these years. He's not Brandon Ingram. So even if you move on from him, how are you replacing his 25-5-5 and his main hub of offense? I just don't see it. And so if someone has to go to fit underneath the tax, I just don't think it's Brandon Ingram. He's done everything you asked him to do this offseason. It just so happens that so far the chips have not fallen in the Pels' favor. But it ain't on Brandon Ingram. It ain't on his fault. It ain't on his development.
Well, I agree with you 1,000%. And I think we know. I'm not saying go over the tax for Brandon Ingram and this team. I'm saying if Brandon Ingram is the like you talk about the sacrificial lamb, I don't think that's the right idea. I think there is a guy on the team who everybody knows, right? This isn't something we're bringing up. This is something that everybody brings up. That there is a guy on the team who, if there is a replacement level. If you want to talk about if BI isn't on the team, who then takes BI's spot? Trey is probably not there at BI spot and may never get to that spot. But there is a guy that could get to this Jordan Hawkins can get to this guy's spot and give you some of the things that he does, not getting $33 million a year. And obviously the person we talk about is CJ McCollum. And so I agree 1,000% that if there is somebody that needs to be moved, again, I'm not even saying it should be CJ. I'm just saying if there is somebody who needs to be moved to get underneath the tax so that you don't pay the tax this year and then obviously pay the repeater tax next year, that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But Brandon Ingram, the guy who with everybody out, you can give the ball to and have offense run, you don't realize how difficult it is to be an NBA starter until guys are out and you just putting guys in, let alone being a star in a hub of offense. And so I just don't know. I just don't know where you get that kind of offense from without Brandon Ingram. And again, I see Don. I see you talking about Trey stretches the floor more than BI. Who is Trey stretching the floor for if BI is not out here right now? I mean, Zion is there.
Let me do you one better. Let's say Zion's not on the court. Who you running the offense through? Trey? You've never done that before, ever. And he's played 30 minutes per game for the last 2 seasons. You run the offense through Trey Murphy? I don't think that's the offense that you want to run. So, again, to your point, I think that there needs to be some discussions had, and I think the results will tell you. Now, if you go into the trade deadline and the Pelicans turn things around once they get healthy, then maybe you go with the tax, or maybe you try to get under the tax this year, and you worry about it next year and figure out what you got to do once trade money hits, and once you pay BI, you figure out, does someone need to, make a move? But until then, the results are going to determine what this franchise does moving forward. Now, speaking of results, hopefully reinforcements are on the way. Trey Murphy should be coming back as early as possibly the Nets game on Monday. You could have CJ McCollum back next week. You could have Herb Jones next week. You still got a couple more weeks before DeJounte Murray. So hopefully you're starting to get some players back. But to your point, as far as the Magic go, and let's get into that, that's the game we're going to. That's the game that is up next. They've lost 5 in a row. They're also 3-6. Their best player is also injured. By the way, if you look around the NBA, there are a lot of stars not playing or not playing well right now due to illness, due to sickness. Like, the NBA is kind of all jumbled up right now. And that's why, people's rushing to judgment. I'm like, what the NBA looks like today in the first week of November is going to be totally different by February of 2025. Like, you just slow down just a little bit before you make any sweeping discussions. But when you look at a Magic team that's struggling right now, they're looking to get a win. They're trying to figure out their own injury situation. They're struggling to score. They're 28th in scoring. You thought the Pelicans were struggling to score. The Magic struggling to score, but they're still a good team. They're still a good defensive team. They still shoot a lot of threes. They're 10th in the NBA in threes, 6th in free throw attempts, so they still get to the line. They're still a good defensive team, 7th in steals, 9th in blocks. You still have to bring the hard hat. But I think with the way Zion's starting to play these last 2 games that you've actually seen him and the way BI has played all season, I think this is a game you have to have so that you don't go in a 4-game loser streak. And then hopefully maybe you get some momentum. You can take down Brooklyn and then get a couple of guys back. What are your thoughts as we close out the pod? We look at this matchup versus Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando is a team that is very similar. We talked about it last year. Very similarly built to the Pelicans, right? They have their 2 best players are wing players, front court players. And then they have a bunch of defensive guys. You know, Jonathan Isaac is there, Herb Jones. You got Jalen Suggs is their version of kind of like Jose. They have a bunch of guys that are hard nosed on the defensive side. Now, obviously, Paolo is out. That sucks. Hopefully, he's okay and get back after his stay away. But they have Franz Wagner. They have some guys that are I would say like savvy, like a bunch of savvy guys, and then they rely on the defense, right? The offense is it might be a rock fight. It might be a rock fight because the defense is going to be tight on Zion, and on Bi. So to your point, I think this is going to be a game where you have to take care of the ball. These guys are pressure deep. Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Isaac, two of the best perimeter defenders in the league that you could get. Jalen Suggs just got his KCP as well. They have a lot of good perimeter defenders. And so I think with Zion, you can get to the rim. They don't really have a lot of, they got shot blocking, but a lot of it is because of Jonathan Isaac. And Paolo was playing good defensively. He's not out there. But like there isn't that like Jared Allen, Evan Mobley type of force down there. And so I do think that you could get to the rim. Brandon Ingram should be able to get to his defensive, to his offensive bag and to his spots because, Jalen Suggs and KCP are their primary defenders in the starting lineup. Obviously, Jonathan Isaac is going to be there, but he's going to be too busy trying to protect the rim from Zion. And so it's going to be, Bi should be able to get to his spot, especially now that he's opening up the threes a lot. And I think this could be a good game for like Jordan Hawkins or Brandon Boston to get going from the 3-point line. If they could just flare out to the 3-point line because they don't have that big center kind of patrolling the paint, they're going to have to crash the bodies on Bi and on Zion. And so if you can spread out and hit those guys for open shots, I think they will. And I think that's the kind of motivation that you have to have, what you said at the end of it, where if you could get this game and get a Brooklyn game and then get some guys back, you're pretty much back at 500, back at pretty much a starting point. And then you can start to incorporate those guys and get some momentum going with guys coming back. And so I think you need to be looking at these two games, these next two games, especially this, this Orlando and this Brooklyn game, and saying, let's get these two so that when the guys come back, they're not coming back to basically a really uphill climb. And it's just, hey, we're right back at 500 or right underneath it. Then you can incorporate guys and use this as a launching pad to the season until you deal with some more injuries. And so, I think this could be, a decent game for the Pelicans if they protect the ball, if they play to their strength, if they get down to the paint, and Zion does what he does, and then also spray out to the 3-point line because they're going to be crashing so many bodies on those two guys.
Right, for sure. So that's all we have for you this week. Again, the Pelicans lose 3 in a row. They're going up against the Magic, who are also, lost 5 in a row. It's a battle of who can turn the tide a little bit. But what you got left for the people, Garrick, as we go into the weekend, the Pelicans try to right the ship?
As always, you never know what people are going through. So give someone a smile today. This is going to be an interesting game. I can't wait to get to Orlando, bro. I love Orlando. I love Disney World. I love being in that city. I can't wait. And this will be actually my first trip to the Kia Center, which again I've been excited to get to. And so I'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, the Pelicans got to go in here, take advantage of this, get some guys back, and start to build some momentum. And I think they can get these two games. But as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow the page. I'll follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO_basketball, no E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your socials. Most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans.basketball, and we'll see you guys next time.